North Carolina football has had really good quarterback play over the last 8 years. In 2015, Marquise Williams led the Tar Heels to the ACC Championship. Mitch Trubisky had a great career and ended up being a top 5 draft pick. And then most recently, Sam Howell became the best quarterback in North Carolina history and has since been drafted. All three of those guys were a pretty big deal in the college football world, but the best might still be yet to come. His name is Drake Maye. This guy was a huge deal coming out of high school and had all the potential in the world to be their next star quarterback, and so far, he has lived up to all the hype as he is not only making North Carolina history, but is currently making ACC history as well. He looks like the next big thing, is having a monster 2022 season, and honestly, it looks like the sky is the limit for him. In today's video, we're going to talk about the rise of Drake Maye, go through how he got to this point, talk about his season so far, and my expectations and outlook for him in the future. But before we get started, we're on the road to 100k, so quickly be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like if you want to support today's video, turn on post notifications so you never miss when I upload, and let me know what player or topic I should do next. Now, let's get started and talk about the rise of Drake Maye. Maybe the Maye name sounds familiar, as if you are a college basketball fan, you likely remember the North Carolina buzzer beater against Kentucky. That happened in March Madness, and the guy who hit it was named Luke Maye. That is the brother of Drake Maye, and combining that with the fact that his dad was also the starting quarterback in the 1980s for North Carolina, the Maye family loves Tar Heel blue. While Luke was at North Carolina, Drake eventually became a star quarterback. He transferred to Myers Park High School right before his sophomore year, and he joined a football program loaded with Division I talent. Maye was a star from the minute he arrived on campus, and made that stadium the place to be on Friday nights. How good was he? Well, as a junior, he passed for over 3,500 yards and 50 touchdowns with only 2 interceptions. Also, keep in mind he sat much of the second half of games because they were up so much. The dude was literally a cheat code. His go-to wide receiver was current Texas A&M young star wide receiver Moose Mohammed, and apparently Drake was insanely hard on himself, so he had everything going for him. He was incredibly talented, motivated, and had all the tools to be a star college quarterback. So it was no shock when he eventually narrowed his choices to Clemson and Alabama. North Carolina was absent from the list. He said he didn't really give a lot of thought to the Tar Heels, who had gone 5-14 in the final 2 years under Larry Fedora. After several visits to Tuscaloosa, Maye eventually committed to Alabama over Clemson and said this, quote, "It's the winning mentality. I went down there in the spring and then for camp in the summer. I loved it. I sat down with Coach Saban and talked about the winning mentality. It's all about winning down there. To have Coach Saban say in 2021 that I was a big target, it meant a lot to me. I just felt, why not Bama? It's the best place in the country." Well, the blue chip quarterback was all set to go to Alabama, but then Bryce Young and Sam Howell happened. The 5-star quarterback Bryce Young from Mater Dei flipped from USC to Alabama, and Sam Howell put up big numbers in a bowl win in year 1 under Mack Brown. After seeing what Howell had done to the Tar Heels offense and what Mack had done in 1 year, plus all the family history, Maye slowly started to shift towards going to North Carolina, and he told his high school coach he was going to flip. What his coach said was gold. Quote, "You're the one that's going to college, not me, but I'm not calling Coach Saban. You're going to have to make that call." Maye said that Saban handled the situation perfectly, but he did try to convince him to take official visits to both schools before making a final decision. Drake told Saban his mind was made up though, and the call was over pretty much from there. He was now a Tar Heel. His dad was all in favor of it. He said, quote, "I went to North Carolina, my wife did, my older son did, Luke, and also Bo is a freshman there right now. We're all from North Carolina. This is where he belongs and where he needs to be." He was now going to be a heel and was going to have a huge impact on Mack Brown's program. According to 24/7 Sports, Maye was a 4-star recruit, the number 9 quarterback and the 56th best player in the class of 2021. So what would his impact be at North Carolina? Well, he would enroll early, and because of everything that went on in 2020, he would have to miss his senior season. It got moved from the fall to the spring, and this was extremely difficult on him. He turned heads pretty much right away in Chapel Hill though, as former UNC linebacker Shaquille Rashad had this to say, quote, "I may be jumping the gun here, but when does the Drake Maye Heisman campaign start? 2022 or 2023? That was some high praise after last year's spring game, but his role would be a backup position. He'd beat out Jacoby Criswell for the spot behind Sam Howell, but in the one time he played all year, he went 7 of 10 for 89 yards and a touchdown, with nearly 40 yards on the ground as well. As I've said many times, Sam Howell has been a star, and he has high praise for the future after him. He had this to say, "Both Jacoby and Drake are talented guys and they work so hard. They watch a ton of film and they really prepare like they've been starting, and that's probably what's most impressive. They both had really good years in practice, and they're doing a lot of really good things. In my eyes, Drake is in the driver's seat to win the starting job, and I think he could be a superstar in Chapel Hill this upcoming fall. Well, it looks like Sam Howell may have been on to something. So far this year, Maye has been absolutely insane. He obviously beat out Criswell for the starting job, and Maye put his name out there in week 0. In their first game against Florida A&M, Maye would go 29 of 37 for 294 yards and 5 touchdowns. While they did struggle against the Rattlers in the first half, Maye obviously had a big game and made North Carolina history for the most touchdowns in an opening game. Week 2 was an interesting one. They go on the road to play against Appalachian State, and this game lived up to the hype. Not only were there a couple of missed 2-point conversions, but there was a crazy onside kick and a ton of big-time touchdowns. Maye would end up going 24 of 36 for 352 yards with 4 touchdowns and no interceptions. Not only that, but he also ran for 76 yards and a touchdown on the ground, and they would ultimately survive against the Mountaineers 63-61, and that was one of the games of the year so far. Maye was starting to make a name for himself as he had 10 touchdowns through his first 2 games. In week 3, they'd once again go on the road to a group of 5 school as he'd go 19 of 24 for 284 yards and 2 touchdowns and a 7-point victory over Georgia State. Looking back, it should not have been that close as the Panthers aren't any good, but that one interception was costly, and the important thing was Maye won. While that game was a little bit of a letdown, he would bounce back the following week. The Tar Heels would host Notre Dame, and while Notre Dame had been reeling after a couple of bad losses, they came to play. Maye did as well. He'd end up going 17 of 32 for 301 yards and 5 touchdowns without an interception. On paper, it looked like they probably won that game. North Carolina's defense was so bad that they allowed this Notre Dame team to put up 45 points, and they lost by 2 scores. This was their first loss of the year, but Maye has made up for it since. He'd throw for 363 yards and 3 touchdowns with 2 more scores on the ground and a win over Virginia Tech. And then this past weekend, he would duel it out with Tyler Van Dyke as he'd go 19 of 28 for 309 yards and 2 scores in that one. Unfortunately, he had 2 interceptions. After a late meltdown, they get a late interception and would beat Miami 27-24. So, Maye has been historically insane so far. Through his first 6 games, he's thrown for 1,903 yards, with 21 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, and he also has 3 scores on the ground. Maye is off to the best start in North Carolina history, and is making serious noise in the conference as well. Apparently, no quarterback in ACC history has thrown more passing touchdowns through the first 6 games than Maye has, and before, the record was tied between Kenny Pickett and Jameis Winston. Both of those quarterbacks ended up finishing top 3 in the Heisman Trophy conversation, so it leads many to wonder, is Drake Maye a legitimate Heisman candidate right now? The Heels are 5-1, he's putting up numbers, and he has that it factor. He's making big plays, he's scoring points, and if he can just find a way to keep getting wins and get his team to the ACC title game, there's a chance that Maye could do this. Not only could he have a big 2022 season, but he could play himself into the conversation to be that number 1 overall pick in next year's draft. That is how good he is playing right now, and he has all the physical tools to translate to the next level as well. Scouts are currently drooling over how well he has played, and when you just watch him, you can just tell he has that it factor and that he wants to win games. But we're gonna have to wait and see. It's only been 6 games, and who the heck knows what'll happen in the next year and a half. Either way though, Maye has been awesome, he's been historically insane, and he's a lot of fun to watch. But what do you guys think? If you're a North Carolina fan, what do you think of Drake Maye, and what are your expectations for the season? If you're not a fan of North Carolina, be sure to let me know your thoughts on Maye down below. Let me know if you think he's an NFL quarterback, and let me know what player, topic, team, or situation I should cover next. Before you go, don't also forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.